Hi, welcome back to Halloween House.
Happy New Year. So, to start off our new year on January 1st, we visit a new park in Gary, Indiana. It is focused on an artesian spring, and this well has likely been around for 200 years or more, and it was tapped between 1910 and 1920.
And little did we know, there's 23 artesian wells in Indiana, and in each one, the water comes up from an underground aquifer protected by a non-porous layer of either rock or clay. And what would generally happen is a crack would form and water would flow to the surface. And old-timey people would notice that and be like, hey, here's some nice water. And so they would tap it. And after they tapped it, they would pretty much get a non-stop stream of cold water. And it would come from that pipe in the ground. It wasn't glamorous, but it was free, fresh, clear, cold water.
Yes, and no one's paying a water bill. This is a gift from Mother Nature. It is completely free.
It's pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah, how pretty and clear that is. Smells like well water. That's really good.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it smells like well water. Not bad at all.
It's good.
Nice and clean. So this particular spring is located at 3610 Chase Street in Gary, Indiana. Back in the day, you used to pull over to the side of the road with your family in the car, get out and walk over through the mud or the dirt, and there was a pipe in a piece of concrete, and it would pour out the water onto usually a pallet. So definitely not glamorous then. The new park is called Spring Park. There is parking for 3 cars, seating, shade, and the well. It's really simple, but not much more is needed as most visitors arrive with their jugs, fill up, and head out. And some people like the taste, and others believe it might have medicinal powers.
And the water is tested 4 times a year. It is completely safe to drink. It is also a nice treat for your house plants. If you're out there, grab a gallon or 2 for your plants. It's probably not something I would use on a regular basis because of mineral buildup, but a nice treat once a month or so. Wonderful for your house plants. So while we're out there, of course, our curiosity was piqued, and we wanted to know more about the history of the neighborhood and also more about artesian wells.
And this location was especially valuable to the locals back in the day. The communities here were small farms and black oak, and they were home to some of the less fortunate, the poor blacks and whites. And many did not have safe drinking water in their homes. Some of their wells were contaminated, so they really needed this.
Yeah. So Small Farms was a rural community in Calumet Township. It was on the southwest edge of Gary, Indiana. It was home to African Americans who initially settled there during the Great Migration. The Great Migration began in 1910 and went to about 1970. It was purported something like 6 million African Americans fled the southern states to search for better jobs and opportunities in the north, specifically the Midwest like Chicago and Gary, and also New York City. And so Small Farms was generally considered to be bordered by Grant Street on the east, Clark Road on the west, and it was between 21st and 29th Avenues.
And Small Farms and the adjacent neighborhood of Black Oak were historically under-resourced. They had no municipal services, no street lights, few paved roads, and due to racially restrictive housing covenants and fraudulent land sales, Small Farms was located on a floodplain near the Little Calumet River. But despite those challenges and the denial of capital, the community flourished. Residents built houses, cultivated the land, some of them kept livestock, and others found work in the mills and other businesses.
The small farms community, it began to disperse in the 1960s. It just kept, losing housing stock due to the construction of Interstate 94, a U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development renewal project, and a federally funded flood control initiative. Nowadays, the area is now annexed to the city of Gary. So, and Black Oak is still a neighborhood, even though Small Farms is not. Black Oak hasn't changed in demographics much at all. You'll still find it populated mostly by lower income white people, and it does flood and does not get as many services from the city as it needs.
So, as we were researching everything, I'd always remembered hearing about two wells in the area. I didn't know if they were like across the street from each other or if they were close by. But so as we were doing the research, we found there was a second spring located about a mile from this one. And a company used to bottle the water and ship it to Chicago for sale. The springs might even have been connected to the same aquifer.
So our search did lead us to a home in Black Oak at 3500 Calhoun Street. The well is no longer there. It was likely capped in the early 60s for unknown reasons. But prior to that, people would drive up the circular driveway in front of the home to fill their jugs. Some would leave pennies on a tree stump as thanks to the owners for sharing their water.
And we decided to try to start a new thing.
Yes.
And we left some pennies at the new park.
We did leave 2 pennies for the water. And it's also interesting to note that the house at 3500 Calhoun Street, where the second well's purported to be or was built in 1927. And it is out of the small farms community, but it would have been in the heyday of small farms.
The story about the bottling of the water just really rings very typical to me of old-time Chicago and Northwest Indiana. A company convinced the homeowner to allow them to bottle the water, but instead of paying him, they built a large shed on the property for his farm equipment. The family called it the watershed, and the water was bottled at a home a few doors down and shipped to a tavern in Chicago. They sold the water there until it was discovered that not all the water was from the spring. Some of it was Chicago city water from the tap at that business. So unfortunately, once that got discovered, the business folded for the bottled water.
And if you would like to hear some more stories about the people that lived in the small farms community, or even Black Oak, where the second Artesian well was at one point, make sure to check out Indiana University at South Bend Digital Collection. It's just a wonderful collection of stories from people that grew up there, lived there, and remember those days.
Yeah, and some of the photos we used are from that as well. And there is a link in the notes on our video to that.
Yes, in the description, there's a link to everything. So thank you very much to Indiana University South Bend.
You helped a lot with our research.
Yes, so make sure you get out there and check out that park and get some great artesian water for yourself and your plants.
Stay spooky.
Stay spooky.